So it seems like once you stake or once you add liquidity to Radio Shack DeFi, you can't take it out, which sucks. Okay, so this is a weird video. Never thought I'd ever in a million bajillion years make a video on Radio Shack. Remember Radio Shack, that store that like used to sell like electronics parts? It was kind of like a way less cool Best Buy. It was big in the 80s. Tried to make a comeback in the early 2010s, couldn't quite do it. Well, now Radio Shack is back. They've completely pivoted. They're trying to do some crypto thing now. Radio Shack was recently purchased by this guy. You're probably familiar with Ty Lopez, that one guy that does the here in my garage thing. But yeah, anyway, regardless of what your opinion is on him, he purchased Radio Shack, the brand. Well, I guess he has a holding company and he owns a bunch of brands. His like plan was to like buy all these dyeing companies, Dress Barn, Stein Martins and things, Pier 1, and Radio Shack, and kind of put them online. And one of the things he's doing with Radio Shack is making it a DeFi platform. So I did a little bit of research on this. I read their white paper. We're going to go through the entire white paper right now, so I can give you a little background on this project and what's going on with the Radio Shack. I'm definitely not going to buy this for sure, but you know, in case you were wondering, here's your go-to guide on Radio Shack DeFi. So RadioShack.com will take you to this website. They actually still have the store hidden here somewhere. So if you actually want to buy some drop shipped products with the Radio Shack logo on it, you can still do that. All right, so back to Radio Shack DeFi. What is Radio Shack DeFi? I guess the project here in a nutshell is they are trying to make a coin that will be the bridge between other coins in the cryptocurrency space. They want to be the, I guess, kind of like the PayPal for crypto, but for businesses. So when businesses ultimately start getting more involved with Web3 and crypto, Radio Shack wants to be the company that like helps them swap their coins and like build their infrastructure. All right, so like going through this website, there's like a lot here. So here it says that it's a 100-year-old brand. If you're older than 30, they already have the brand recognition, and they're starting with a swap. So doing some research on this, I found out that this is actually kind of like a fork of this other coin called Atlas USV. And doing a little more research than the average Joe, Atlas USV was created by this guy here, or is run by this guy here, Dr. Alex Mayer, and then we got Ty Lopez here, and ta-da, they are the same guys that are here. In the white paper, they mentioned that they have strategic partnerships with, I think it was Pier 1. So like these guys already own Pier 1, so not much of a strategic partnership. It's more of a case study, which they said. So we're gonna go into the Radio Shack coin white paper and basically see what this is all about, and I'm gonna try to explain it as best I can. Of course, they have a Twitter, a Telegram, and a Discord, because why not? All right, read the docs. Why Radio Shack DeFi? We're just gonna go through it. The most important day for any new emerging technology is the day in which it crosses the chasm, the moment of mass adoption, even among the most skeptical consumer. Now, I'm actually familiar with the guy Ty Lopez. I've watched his content before, and he is a master marketer. So there's a lot of his language in here, and not a lot of like technical stuff. So a lot of it is just like, it's like a Radio Shack commercial convincing you why Radio Shack is so great and why nobody is going to bring cryptocurrency to the mainstream like Radio Shack. So it's kind of like all over the place, but nonetheless, let's get into it. Unlike the iPhone, Tesla self-driving car, Amazon.com crossed the chasm. They were but an embryo in the economic womb, but after that crossing, they became trillion-dollar assets or close to it. Imagine if Bitcoin talked about itself like this. We intend Radio Shack to be the first protocol to pass over into mainstream usage in the history of DeFi. Harvard University says Jeffrey A. Moore, the book The Crossing the Chasm, has become the Bible for bringing cutting-edge products to progressively larger markets. So they're referencing this book because I guess it's a book about how to bring technology into the hands of many, and that's basically the plan for Radio Shack, to bring cryptocurrency to the mainstream. We intend to follow a strategy in making DeFi a household name, but currently Moore would clearly see crypto as a tool not yet adopted by large markets. And we mean this with no disparagement to the early blockchain adopters, as they have pushed crypto close to a $3 trillion market cap, not an easy feat. Yet this is a blip on the radar of a globe with a $250 trillion estimated net worth. So basically here they're saying crypto is still small. There's a long way to go, and Radio Shack coin is going to help us get there. And then we have a quote from Moore. There is something fundamentally different between a sale to an early adopter and a sale to an early majority. We can thus infer that crypto hasn't even gotten started yet. $3 trillion with miles to go. What an opportunity for those who came to market quickly. Radio Shack DeFi is focused on the early majority. It will become the first to market with a 100-year-old brand name that's recognized in virtually 190 countries all over the world. In the USA alone, Radio Shack once had over 8,000 stores. Yeah, that was a while ago. Despite the shutdown of the original brand as an electronics retailer, its recognition is hardly diminished. That's not true. Ask anyone under 30 if they know Radio Shack, and they will probably say no. And is still active in South America, the Middle East, and online globally as an e-commerce store. And you can't forget this classic Super Bowl commercial. All right. Radio Shack has one objective: distribution and usage by millions of individuals, but possibly more important, by hundreds of blue-chip large corporations as their gateway into becoming blockchain companies. Imagine if brands like Louis Vuitton, Starbucks, and Mercedes-Benz utilize the Radio Shack protocol for their DeFi projects. So, like I said, they're basically trying to be the tool that all these companies use when they inevitably switch over to blockchain. The number one corporate objective when crossing the chasm is to secure a distribution channel into the mainstream market, one with which the pragmatic customer will be comfortable. This objective comes from before revenues, before profits, before press, even before customer satisfaction. All these other factors can be fixed later, but only if the channel is established. The channel being these already established brands like Louis Vuitton, Starbucks, and Mercedes-Benz. And this is where crypto has missed the mark. Too many focus on speculation and not enough on making the old school customer feel comfortable. Notice that Moore ends by saying the word established, and so established well-known brands like Radio Shack are the key. Currently, crypto has no well-known brands, even over 15 years old. That's pretty true. Until now. It is our hypothesis, unless you count the banks that are messing with crypto. It is our hypothesis that the best way for crypto to be more mainstream is for an established brand name in the tech space to lead the way. Radio Shack started in 1921 in Boston by brothers Theodore and Milton Deutschman as the leader in the nascent tech world for nearly a century. Despite its pullback in the last 10 years, the brand is absolutely embedded in the global consciousness, ripe to be pivoted to lead the way for blockchain tech to mainstream adoption by other large brands. Remember, there is a real generational gap between the average crypto buyer. In some countries like India, it's as low as age 24, and on average corporate decision-making global CEO who averages 68. This demographic difference creates a substantial psychological barrier to crypto adoption. The older generation simply doesn't trust the newfangled ideas of the Bitcoin youth. Even worse, research finds that adults who are specifically authoritarian, intelligent, and well-read, i.e. the CEOs that Radio Shack seeks to woo, have an even lower estimation of the younger age bracket. The need for a bridge between the CEOs who control the world's corporations and the new world of cryptocurrencies will most likely come in the form of a well-known century-old brand. Radio Shack is perfect, and the first product to kickstart the journey is a token swap. So that's basically their mission in a nutshell. They want to, like I said before, they believe that they are going to be the bridge to bridge these old CEOs with all the money with these crypto kids. And the way to do that is through partnering with a bunch of already well-known brands like the ones previously mentioned. So kind of like Square in a way. Always remember, I'm not telling you to invest in this. I'm not investing in this. I'm just helping you understand what the heck Radio Shack is doing. I know Ty Lopez talks about crypto a lot and on his Instagram. I don't really know how much he actually knows about it. I don't know how much the other guy knows about it, but this like whole thing is basically like a copy of the Olympus DAO, like what they're trying to do with their owning liquidity and staking and all that. But we're gonna get into that later in the video. I'll explain the specifics once we get to that in the white paper. So here we are, the secret sauce. Why Radio Shack has an even greater competitive edge. And of course we have Ty Lopez just talking about stuff not really about the project. Biologists often speak of Mother Nature's secret sauce, symbiosis. Simply put, it means interaction between two different organisms living in close physical association, typically to the advantage of both. The extra boost that Radio Shack needs to increase its probability of success is symbiosis with two other projects. Fortunately, several of the co-founders of Radio Shack DeFi are also serendipitously co-founders of other two projects. Remember I said? One of them is this coin, Atlas USV, which is the fork of what Radio Shack platform is. So that's this guy here. And then the other is Ty Lopez, retail e-commerce venture. So they're basically marrying their two ventures together and trying to boost up Radio Shack DeFi. And in the following pages, we dig deeper into both projects and how they will work together with Radio Shack to create a massive competitive advantage. So first, their symbiosis with Atlas USV. Radio Shack's partner, Atlas USV, which stands for Universal Store of Value, is aiming to become the base layer of DeFi with a fast-growing treasury that backs its ecosystem. As shown in the following chart, Atlas USV has a constant inflow of third-party tokens into its treasury using a mechanism called barter. Barter is basically bonding. Once a barter contract is issued for a specific token, USV users can purchase that token in the open market and transfer it to the Atlas USV treasury in return for discounted USV tokens. This transfer is a one-time, irrevocable transaction that essentially allows USV treasury to accumulate any crypto asset of its choice. If you don't understand what that meant, don't worry, I'll explain it right now. So, basically, Atlas USV is a coin that owns its own liquidity, and when you get the coin, you're incentivized to stake it, or you're incentivized to buy bonds because the coin needs to be backed by something, and it's not pegged to anything. It's backed, meaning it's not tracking the value of something. It's backed by a basket of assets that are contributed by various factors, if that makes sense. So let's go down this list to see what happens. So first, the user adds liquidity to Radio DAI pool on Radio Shack and receives liquidity provider tokens. So you add your liquidity, you add your Radio DAI to the pool, and you receive your LP tokens. From there, you would buy USV barter using the Radio DAI liquidity pool tokens that you received. And now the USV treasury owns the liquidity pool tokens. So you add liquidity, you get back LP tokens, and then you get the bond. And by giving back the LP tokens, it seems like, then over the next 7 days, you receive USV over the course of a vesting period. So in return for adding liquidity, you get USV. Having received the USV, you can either stake it or you can trade it. So it's up to you. So they really just want you to add as much liquidity as possible. And we're seeing this a lot with a lot of DAOs going on, like Olympus DAO, Euphoria, Time. They're popping up all over the place. I swear, like, these are going to be the next NFT craze, especially with the incredibly high APYs that they're able to offer, which is why I've been trying to do as much research as I can so I can explain it in like the most simple way possible. But it's like we're still in the incredible wild west of DeFi, so there's a lot to look out for. So now it's talking about decentralized exchanges 1.0 and rented liquidity. So basically, too long didn't read. We're going to read it, but I'm going to summarize it. Basically, DEXs today, they rent their liquidity, meaning they don't own it. So a lot of times, if there's a rug pull, the user won't have access to the liquidity because the DEX isn't in complete control of the liquidity pool. And that's what Radio Shack DeFi wants to change. So for Radio Shack DeFi to win in the current DEX game, henceforth referred to as DEX 1.0, it must convince traders and aggregators to use the RadioShack swap. To win that, customer slippage must be extremely low. Slippage is the price difference between the submitted transaction and the actual completed transaction on the blockchain. Traders find high slippage to be anathema. Okay, so two dynamics are responsible for slippage: high trading volume and low liquidity. RadioShack is an elegant solution to minimize slippage. So the logical place to start is to own an extremely deep liquidity pool. In general, the deeper the liquidity pool, the lower the slippage. Therefore, traders and DEX aggregators route trades through the deepest liquidity pools to achieve optimal outcome for their trades. But there is a problem with the current DEX 1.0 solution. The current major players do not own their own liquidity. They rent it, meaning other users provide liquidity to the protocol in return for rewards, normally minted by the DEX in a yield farm. This has multiple negative consequences and externalities. A. As the DEX mints its own tokens continuously, encourages users to provide liquidity, it dilutes itself. See the 1920s, like, okay, Ty, cool. A history lesson in there. Yet despite incurring the damage for dilution from new tokens minted, the protocol still doesn't own its own liquidity. It's just paying the users to park their liquidity in the pool while the rewards are flowing. The moment the rewards stop flowing, the users flee, and so does the rented liquidity. A quick spiral to the bottom then ensues. So you stop getting APY points, people unstake, they sell, and they leave. Regardless of the reward rate, there's always churn in rented liquidity pools. Someone may remove their liquidity to deploy it in another more lucrative opportunity. That's called yield farming. Or might even panic sell in a downward market. Fear is a hell of a drug. For each person removing their liquidity from a pool, the DEX has to find someone to replace that liquidity to achieve the same level of slippage. This constant churn is coined as the leaky bucket problem, defined as how a bucket with a constant leak will shrink if the average rate at which the water leaks out exceeds the rate at which the bucket is filled. For all current DEX 1.0, a steady state point is reached where the churn eventually catches up with the speed of adding new liquidity. It's formulated below, and they give a little equation right here. When the saturation condition is satisfied, the pool no longer grows. A cap on how deep the liquidity is reached, which annoyingly keeps the DEX from offering low slippage to its customers. This graph is the horrific destiny for all liquidity pools in DEX 1.0s. If you don't understand that, so people add liquidity here. The liquidity pool deepens as time goes on. The rewards need to keep flowing, because if they don't, people are going to sell and the liquidity pool is going to stop getting deep. So it needs to be replaced by more liquidity. So rewards need to continue to be offered, and the incentive always needs to be strong. So the more people leave, the more people need to be replaced. That basically just makes a ceiling for the depth of the liquidity. And even further than this graph above is illustrated, the dynamics get even worse, because the only way to achieve deeper liquidity once saturation is reached is to increase rewards. But the more rewards you give, the more coins are minted, making the price lower, which dilutes it. And even further than this graph above is illustrated, the dynamics get even worse, because the only way to achieve deeper liquidity once saturation is reached is to increase the reward weight to attract more liquidity providers. However, as more liquidity accumulates in the pool, the churn increases until equation 1 is satisfied again, at which point the liquidity growth stalls yet again. This is similar to a drug addict who sadly needs more to get their fix. And to complete the above death spiral, the trading fee dynamics now deteriorate, because the larger the pool, the lower the trading fee per pool participant. Some trading fees spread thinner among more pool participants. So you can see why this is a problem. DEXs rent their liquidity, and to get people to stake or provide liquidity, they have to offer rewards. The more rewards are offered, the more coins are made, diluting the total amount and thus lowering the price. When the price is lowered, people panic sell and they remove their liquidity. Then the DEX needs to offer more rewards so that more liquidity is put into the protocol, and it's just a spiral that never stops. All right, now let's move on to a new paradigm. So how does RadioShack fix this problem? Atlas USV owns the assets in the treasury, it doesn't rent them, and the same goes for RadioShack LP tokens collected by Atlas USV. And as discussed before, the Atlas USV protocol is a long-term holder, not a reward-oriented short-term provider of liquidity. This gives RadioShack a unique advantage. The liquidity is permanent, not fleeting. So it seems like once you stake or once you add liquidity to RadioShack DeFi, you can't take it out, which sucks. Since liquidity removal is zero, the condition in equation 1 is never satisfied, and therefore the total liquidity pool level always increases and never maxes out. So you would literally need to be a long-term liquidity provider for Radio Shack DeFi, which I'm not super with. So you can see here from this graph how it works. The growth curve, the DEX 1.0 growth curve, because if you allow people to unstake and sell, then the liquidity pool is not going to get deeper with time. This means that once Radio Shack surpasses a DEX 1.0's liquidity level in any token pair, it will become unbeatable in swap efficiency for that pair. Furthermore, any attempt by any other DEXs to recover from the error of their ways by increasing the reward rate or other incentives is temporary and therefore futile, because as we saw before, the DEX 1.0 model inherently has a cap that can only be raised temporarily by increasing rewards, but never completely removed. That is how one of the ways they plan on minimizing slippage. Just make the liquidity pool deeper by not allowing people to remove their liquidity. And then we have this thing called Starfish Topology, Radio Token's primary utility. This is how the swap is actually going to work. So another major problem in today's DEXs that Radio Shack is planning to solve is the issue of liquidity dispersion. The following graph shows the typical liquidity dispersion model currently in use throughout the industry. So this is how you would go from one coin to another in a swap. The thicker the lines, the more liquidity. Dotted lines mean there's not a lot of liquidity, so you're probably going to pay higher fees. It's going to be a lot of friction. It's going to be gross. So to get from Frax to Matic, you would have to go from Frax to USDT to USDC to WETH to Matic. That's a long journey. So like I said, solid lines denote deep liquidity pools, thinner lines denote medium-sized liquidity pools, and dotted lines show very shallow liquidity pools. Since liquidity pairs are often added without much planning, the graph's connectivity is low, and most paths involve thinly spread liquidity pairs in graph theoretic terms. The average distance of the graph, adjusted for the depth of liquidity, is high and connectivity is low. The diameter of the graph is large. For example, in the graph above, to swap from USDT to DAI, two paths are possible. Route number one, where's USDT? To get all the way to DAI. Route number one. So you can go along the dotted edge, but of the two nodes, but low liquidity, price impact is going to be high. You don't know what's going to happen. Trade might not even go through. Or you can go from USDT to USDC to WETH to DAI. A lot of ways. That's a better idea, but it's just going to take longer, and you might be paying more fees. The above example shows the main issue with the chaotic and dispersed liquidity addition. To solve this problem, Radio Shack needs to significantly reduce the diameter of the graph and increase its liquidity adjusted connectivity. This will be achieved by using a single large degree node, the radio node, to create what we refer to as Starfish Topology. Now, this is a huge red flag for me personally, and I'm going to tell you in a second. In this topology, the tokens are mostly linked with the radio token in a hub and spoke structure. There's a much lower liquidity adjusted average distance than the smaller diameter. Furthermore, the Starfish topology has the benefit of having way fewer edges compared to the previous graph, thus concentrating the liquidity and creating deeper pools that can offer lower price impact and slippage. Furthermore, the Starfish topology attempts to balance the depth of liquidity among its limbs by moving liquidity incentives to a thinner but high cut traffic limbs. So basically, Radio Shack wants to be the centralized swap for everything. So it's going to be a bank, basically. You're going to provide deep liquidity for it, and everything's going to go through radio. The radio token node serves as the central large degree token node in the Starfish topology. This is the first and most important utility of radio token. So basically, it's just breaking the first rule of cryptocurrency, which is to keep things decentralized. But this is why I'm making this video, so that people can know what they're doing. They even say it here, the radio token node serves as the central large degree node in the Starfish topology. This is the first and most important utility of the radio token. They even say right here that centralization is the most important part of radio token. In this new topology, the same USDT to DAI swap in the first chart will go through two efficient high liquidity paths, USDT to radio to DAI. Important in the Starfish topology, as more tokens are added, the Starfish grows more limbs, and therefore the demand for radio token increases accordingly. The radio tokens are locked in even more pools to provide an efficient swap path for all tokens in the ecosystem. So just centralize everything, DAI. So how does this tie into retail e-commerce ventures? Well, this is the strategic partnership I was talking about, how they already got a deal with Pier 1 Imports. It's because our boy Ty also owns Pier 1 Imports. See, they're owned by the same people. And these guys are also right here. So they're not really keeping it a secret. Radio Shack DeFi has another trick up its sleeve. Its other partner, the massive retail e-commerce ventures holding company portfolio of well-known U.S. and global brands, Pier 1 Imports, Steinmart, Dress Barn, the Franklin Mint, and Ralph and Russo are just a few brands, all majority owned by retail e-commerce ventures. This alliance instantly provides enterprise-level customers for the Radio Shack swap. Well-known 60-year-old brands like Pier 1 have 90% plus aided brand awareness in the United States and literally tens of millions of paying customers. One brand like Pier 1 launching their own proprietary token on the Radio Shack swap adds instant swap trading fee revenue and creates case studies for Radio Shack swap to go out and bring in more enterprise brand customers. Enterprise mainstream brands are an untapped source of revenue for crypto swaps until now. Once the model is established, we expect other non-mature crypto brands and customers to follow suit and come to Radio Shack for a reliable and established swap partner. How they're going to get to the masses, essentially. Now let's hop into some tokenomics, my favorite part. So they have a couple strategies here, and it's pretty similar to Atlas USV's white paper, which I also read. Almost the same thing. The overall tokenomics philosophy follows the proprietary Nash equilibrium token defense formula that was originally developed for the Atlas USV protocol by the common co-founders of Atlas USV and Radio Shack DeFi. As such, Radio Shack's initial fully diluted supply will include all the elements that were originally developed for Atlas USV, including protocol-owned defense lockbox, which is basically a liquidity pool that can't be touched, K-factor marketing lockbox, which is basically a wallet for marketing, reciprocal altruism charity lockbox, which is a wallet that they will use for charity, co-founder wallet, which is a wallet that basically Ty and the other guy have access to, early advisors, and capital partners. This is a wallet for people that were advising on the project, presumably. Atlas USV's white paper says the same thing. However, unlike USV, there is a for-profit corporation, Radio Shack's holding company, that is also a player in this complex game of tokenomics. Therefore, 2 new pools are added to the NetD account for additional interplay market participants. So they're being transparent, letting you know that Radio Shack has a corporate treasury wallet where Radio Shack will get money because, companies need to make money, and a partnership rewards program, which I'm not really sure is. There's an extra wallet for Ty to do whatever he wants with it, presumably. Initial mint distribution details will be announced shortly. To keep radio tokens scarce, the new mint token rate will be carefully planned and implemented. Details will be announced. The majority of minted tokens will go to stakers. So here we're going to get into the breakdown of where all the money goes. Radio Shack Gas Fee. So Radio Shack swap gas fee is paid in radio tokens. So you're going to take some of your radio tokens via conducting a buyback of tokens from the open market. The protocol's newly received radio tokens from the accumulation of Radio Shack Gas Fee will be tentatively used as follows. 50% of radio tokens are burned, similar to Ethereum London fork burn mechanism. This is important to the protocol's success. 10% use a PODL, a protocol-owned defense lockbox, to add liquidity for radio token with various pairs. This is permanently held in the Radio Shack PODL. So 10% are used for liquidity and can't be used for anything but liquidity. 10% goes to the developers, 10% to Radio Shack Corp, and the others to be determined. So that's 50, 60, 70, 80. There's a remainder 20% that they're not telling us yet what is going to be used for. So to make Radio Shack swap competitive, the gas fees are set at 0.1%, which is split at 0.08 to LP liquidity provider token holders. So if you're adding liquidity, you're getting a split of the gas fee, and 0.02% to the protocol treasury, which basically backs the coin. In a future iteration of the swap, the protocol intends to move to a dynamic gas fee model, Most swaps have a fixed transaction fee that's constant across all liquidity pools. This ignores the obvious advantages of charging dynamic fees that take into account the price and elasticity of rare token pairs versus the elastic common LP pair fees. We think this is the biggest oversight of the solar system, only slightly worse than not offering valet parking services at hospital emergency rooms. So basically they're saying here that gas fees should be dynamic. If you're swapping a coin that's like a little obscure for another super obscure coin, the gas fee is going to be a little bit higher. And if you're just swapping some Ethereum for some DAI, it's just going to be pretty low. Some liquidity pairs are elastic commodities. Example, WETH, USDC. Both are needed strategically to provide an efficient swap on the DApp. On these pairs, it's logical to reduce the transaction fee, henceforth referred to as the RadioShack Gas Fee, to attract liquidity, knowing that the money will be made elsewhere. On more exclusive proprietary tokens, examples, any tokens that we bring on the platform through B2B invites, it makes sense to charge a slightly higher RadioShack Gas Fee to capture more value. Using the same logic, the protocol share of RadioShack Gas Fee will be variable in the future iterations of the swap. On commodity pairs, the protocol may take a very small or even zero fee, leaving maximum incentive for liquidity providers, while in other scenarios, the protocol might take a larger fee. All right, let's talk about some of these rewards. So to keep radio tokens scarce, the new token mint rate will be carefully planned and implemented. Details will be announced. So they're not giving us a lot of information here right off the bat. The majority of newly minted tokens will go to stakers. New tokens, as well as incentive tokens to the initial mint, are used for three purposes. 1. To reward stakers. Radio stakers are the most important users of the RadioShack ecosystem and therefore are rewarded handsomely by receiving the largest portion of the tokens minted. 2. To reward liquidity providers. In the early stages of the protocol, while we continue to build long-term liquidity, we need to boost certain pools in short term by minting and rewarding new tokens. However, we expect this allocation to shrink over time as permanent liquidity is built in the most important liquidity pairs. 3. To reward partners, whoever that may be. As Atlas USV and potentially other partner protocols purchase long-term LP tokens to help RadioShack build its deep liquidity pools, RadioShack in return mints new tokens and sells them to buy the partner's token. Purchase will be made by RadioShack PLDL and belongs to the protocol. The purchase partner's token are paired with radio tokens to create LP tokens, which remain in possession of RadioShack protocol-owned defense lockbox. This is a win-win scenario. Because from RadioShack's perspective, Atlas USV continues to build long-term liquidity for RadioShack, reducing slippage and increasing the RadioShack gas fee revenue. In addition, RadioShack is accumulating USV tokens, which adds assets to the RadioShack PODL while increasing liquidity and therefore additional fees to the radio stakers. From an Atlas USV perspective, Atlas USV continues to accumulate various LP tokens in its treasury, earning swap fees. In addition, RadioShack continuously purchases USV, creating an upward buy pressure while simultaneously increasing liquidity for USV. This is a mouthful. Let me explain it. So Atlas USV is going to buy a bunch of liquidity pool tokens. They're going to add a bunch of liquidity to RadioShack so that it has some nice deep liquidity. It's going to use these liquidity provider tokens and put it in its treasury, and it's also going to get swap fees. And in turn, RadioShack is going to keep buying USV token, which will raise the price of USV, and it's just two companies owned by the same people that are just raising their prices. And that's basically it. They have a website, Discord, of course, Twitter, Telegram. So what do I think of this? First of all, I'm not going to touch it. It's like, it makes sense, like what they're doing. They're just making basically a DAO that's not a DAO because, one, as they showed us, it's not decentralized, and a DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. So it's centralized. 2, it's not autonomous because it's run by these two guys. So really, it's just it's just an organization. So basically, it's going to be a token swap that they want to use for industry. They want to take it to customers. They want to take it to companies and have customers use it, kind of like Square. How Square was one of the first companies to let you use your credit card with your phone. And they want to minimize slippage by having really, really deep liquidity pools, which will be funded primarily by other companies that is owned by Tai Lopez and the other guy. And if you provide liquidity to these pools, you can't remove the liquidity. Liquidity is locked forever. That's a red flag. Centralization, red flag. And then the other red flag is how these two companies, Atlas USV and Radio Shack, are kind of just like buying each other's token to just, make the price go up and like keep each other propped up. So, there's just a lot going on here. The biggest thing is the centralization, which I don't like. Like, I get that that's what they need to do to, increase speed and keep fees low, but that kind of just goes against like what crypto stands for. But if you don't care about that, then maybe Radio Shack DeFi could be for you. I don't even think it's out yet. Go ahead, do your own research. I'm not telling you to invest in this, but definitely take a look at that if like you're interested. I'm interested to see where this goes. It's definitely a pivot for sure. Who knows? It could work. It could not. They definitely have a competitive advantage by owning all those companies. So, yeah, hopefully I helped you understand what Radio Shack DeFi is a little more. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments and we'll chat it up. All right, guys. I'll catch you later. Peace out.